New this morning, the U.S. F-15 fighter jet that was shot down over Iran last month, which resulted in a dangerous rescue mission by U.S. forces, was reportedly struck by a Chinese-made shoulder-launched missile. Now, China has likely been providing Tehran with long-range early warning radar and missile systems since the beginning of the conflict. I want to bring in Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, you know, Maria has reported on this program about China providing weapons to Iran. Your thoughts?
Yes. Good morning, Cheryl. Yes, China certainly has provided weapons to Iran. And the issue here is, when did they do that? If they did it after February 28th, then this is time for President Trump to carry through with his warnings of imposing an additional 50% tariff on the goods of any country that has been supplying weapons to that country. So far, he has not done that. President Trump knows whether the Chinese have in fact supplied during this war. And it's not just those shoulder-fired missiles that brought down the F-15. It's these anti-ship cruise missiles, the CM-302s and the YJ-21Es. Those are really important. And we've seen these pictures of Chinese cargo planes arriving in Iran during the middle of the war. President Trump needs to talk to the American people about what were in those planes, because he certainly knows.
Interesting, interesting. Well, President Trump is now firing back against Xi Jinping, revoking the visa of a Chinese national working for the state news agency. This follows a similar move made by China, who banned New York Times reporter Vivian Wang after an appearance by the Taiwanese president at the paper's Deal Book event. Now, Wang reportedly had no role in the event. Gordon, what do you make of this latest controversy?
Well, China has been closing itself off to foreign reporters, and it's not just Vivian Wang. This has been going on for quite some time. And I think it's because they are, first of all, afraid of the coverage that they are going to get. Plus, also, they're trying to intimidate foreign publications into providing good coverage. The issue here is, yes, it's great that the Trump administration retaliated by expelling a Chinese journalist. But we know that these Chinese journalists, either all or virtually all of them, are Ministry of State security agents. And so we should be expelling them for, just on general principles, because they're not really here to report. They are here to gather information on sensitive topics.
I've got Liz Peek on set. She's got a question for you.
Gordon, good morning. Thanks for joining us. I think a lot of us were disappointed that during the trip that Trump made to China, that there was not more conversation about Xi Jinping weighing in on behalf of the developed world, the whole world, and getting Iran to stand down. In other words, they have not been a helpful entity in this conflict. And supposedly the reason is because they have such vast oil reservoirs that they've been stockpiling for years, that they are not really impacted. What is your view on that? A, are they being hurt by the war in terms of the price of oil going up and the restrictions on imports? And B, why would they not want to have peace in this region?
Well, on A, China at least is thought to have the world's largest strategic petroleum reserve, 140, 150 days of cover. There are reports, though, that that reserve is far less than has been reported because, for instance, there have been water in some of those tanks that should be holding oil. And the answer to B, Liz, is, first of all, I think China would like to see this war drag out and the U.S. humiliated. But also, they do not want the U.S. to actually rummage through Iran's nuclear weapons program facilities, because they'll find evidence that China has been supplying all the components that Iran needed to make a bomb: equipment, materials, technology. And the Chinese don't want us to see that. So they certainly don't want us to get the enriched uranium. We could find out their isotopes. This is going to be a very bad story for China if we are able to actually get a hold of those materials.
Well, that's interesting. That's a very interesting point, yeah. Gordon. I'm glad you made that. Well, from military to AI, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Maria Sunday that the U.S. is far ahead of China in the AI race. Watch what he told her.
There are a significant amount of worries about this agentic AI. What kind of a framework do you want to see around AI?
So we've got great collaboration from from the AI labs, the three major ones, and I am sure that this is going to be one of the great technological innovations that not only of our lifetime, but maybe since the railroads, that we are going to see innovation like we've never seen before. I believe that we have about a 9 or 12 month lead over the Chinese, and I think that should accelerate because the recursive nature of the AI models, the model learns from doing. So we want to stay ahead of the Chinese, because if you can imagine, what if places were swapped,
right,
and the Chinese, they were 12 months ahead of us, then there would be a lot of mischief going on, whether it's in the financial system, manufacturing. So I do believe that we will be able to work with industry and get the patches in place, and they will coincide much better with the release cycle.
You know, Gordon, we need to be ahead of the Chinese in AI, but are we?
Yes, we are. And I think we're actually going to increase our lead, as Secretary Besson said, because while he was speaking to Maria, the Commerce Department reinstated the Biden era's AI diffusion rule. Last May, the Commerce Department decided not to enforce that rule. And what it meant was that NVIDIA and other American chip companies could sell their products to the offshore subsidiaries of Chinese companies. And this has meant, industry analysts said, maybe hundreds of thousands of Blackwell chips have now ended up in Chinese hands. And almost certainly, Cheryl, I am sure that some of those Blackwells are in the hands of the Chinese military and the Ministry of State Security. So it is really good for the Trump administration to get back to the AI diffusion rule, because that means China won't have the chips. And if they don't have the chips, they will not be able to compete effectively with our companies. We saw that with DeepSeek last year. They did very well with their initial R1 model. They couldn't come out with R2 because they didn't have the chips.
Interesting. Well, certainly we've got a lot of news on NVIDIA we're going to get to in the next hour. Gordon Chang, it's great to have you on the program as always. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl.